Good morning, everyone. Now today I thought, why not I wanted to make some bread. And frankly, I wanted to make some lunch with just bread. Now how do you do that? Well, we're going to make a stuffed loaf today. It's just a little technique that I developed on how to actually make a loaf filled with, well, a lot of stuff. This is also basically more of a techniques video than a recipe. So I'm going to stuff my loaf with some cubed ham and some cheese. But you could do this basically with any type of ingredients that you want to stuff into your loaf. I developed this recipe actually after a few years ago, after a visit to Reims in France, where we actually visited a baker that made these stuffed loaves, and I was so surprised that he actually made these loaves and none of the filling actually came sticking out of the crust. So everything was nicely in the center of the loaf. And got me thinking, I mean, he made such lovely loaves. I remember on the way back we actually ate a full loaf of bread without anything to go with it. So got me thinking about this technique. So again, I'm going to show a few techniques. What we're going to be using today, I'm going to be making a white loaf. So we're going to be making some white bread flour just because, well, it showcases the ingredients inside a little bit better to my liking. But again, this is technique, so use this technique as you wish. But well, enough said, let's get baking, guys. Let's get started. Now first of all, it's about 9:30 in the morning and we're going to have this bread for lunch. You heard me right. We're going to pull a few tricks to actually make this bread ferment a little faster than, well, what would be normal, but that's just the case. First of all, what I would always advise, if you can get your hands on it, what I'm using, it's fresh cake yeast. It just works a whole lot better and faster than, well, basically dry bread yeast, sorry, ever will, because you have to hydrate it, it has to take its time, etc. Now what we're going to be using, it's going to be about half the packet of yeast, which is 20 grams. Now this is a little on the high side, but nothing too much. That should be about 20 grams. Now I already added about 8 grams of salt into our flour. What I usually do is, I forgot to show it, but I usually just put my salt into my flour and just shake it around, because you don't want the flour to come into direct contact with the yeast. And what we have here, it's about 250 mils on the high side of water. Now I'm also going to show you a technique later on. So furthermore, of course, nothing sexy, just get in there with your hands and start mixing. So but I will show you a technique on basically how you can make a high hydration dough with your hands. I don't have a bread machine yet, so more hydration means, of course, a lot crispier crumb and a softer inside. But a lot of people say you can't do that without a bread machine. Well, I'm going to show you otherwise. So I think we have already enough to make our dough come together. Maybe we'll even add some more water in the end. But we need some more. And there we go. So mix your dough together and we'll get back when we're off the kneading. As I said, we want to really hydrate this dough as well as we can, or at least that's my intention. As you can see, our dough has come together. It's no longer sticking to my fingers, but we still want to hydrate it some more. Now how I usually achieve this, as I said, we have a dough that's come together and we're just going to add little by little, while we're kneading, a tad bit of water in there, bit by bit. Now you'll see at first this is going to get a little tacky. As you start kneading it in, again, if you have a good, well incorporated dough, it will start to incorporate. And, well, you can continue doing this technique while you're kneading your bread. until, well, she will hold no more. You'll feel as soon as it really starts to stick, and well, I wouldn't say it's not going to fall apart, but really starting to stick, you will be done. You won't be able to hydrate the dough anymore. What you do is just dust with a little flour, give it a short little kneading, extra kneading, and afterwards, well, you will have a nicely hydrated bread dough. We're done kneading, so our bread is nice and springy, elastic, tacky. The camera actually didn't go off, so you didn't show. How I usually proof is just, I put a little flour in the bowl, run the yeast or run the dough around. As you can see, it's very nice and springy at the moment, nicely hydrated. But we're gonna proof this dough for about 45 minutes now. Now that's pretty quick for rising and proofing. So for this we're gonna need a few tricks. First, to start off, I used lukewarm, not cold water. That is one. That'll help the yeast activate a little quicker. And this is going into a warm spot, meaning this is going into, actually for me it's a fermentation chamber that I used to use for beer, but that no longer fits the bottles that I'm currently using. But you can do this in a low oven or near the heater, wherever you like. The only thing we're going to do is cover it up with, well, in this case, a damp towel to keep it nice and moist in there. And we'll see each other in 45 minutes, guys. We're 45 minutes in, and our bread has, well, nicely doubled in size. So again, secret here is high heat, or at least put it in a warm spot. And it's time to start stuffing our bread. First of all, of course, we're going to lightly dust our countertop with some oil, with some flour, sorry. And we're also gonna lightly coat our loaf just to make it easy to roll out. Again, our dough is pretty hydrated. Technique here, well, this is basically a rip-off of how you make a classical French baguette. So we're going to basically first roll out our dough into, well, I'm aiming for a bit of an oval shape. It does not really matter to be too precise, but a little bit of an oval egg type of shape, so that we can of course be allowed to stuff our loaf. Next port of call, that would indeed be to distribute. So what I have here for fillings, it's going to be some shreds of nice aged Dutch cheese. Now I wouldn't go with fully grated cheese, that's going to disappear too much into the bread, but these shreds are going to deliver lovely little pockets of cheese into our bread. Now just be careful that you leave a little space around the edges, otherwise again we might risk that our filling is pouring out, which we don't want. Well, I think I can pretty much stuff just about everything in there. And next, that will be our ham. Now this I think we're going to be a little more careful with. So would I have some cubes of diced ham. Ham and cheese, a great classic in any type of sandwich. So there we go. Again, be careful to leave a little space, room around the edges. Now with filling, again, you can be as creative as you like. I've done this with scraps of minced meat, very lovely. Italian herbs and mozzarella, makes for a very lovely loaf. You name it, whatever you can think of, you can probably throw it in there. And next port of call, that will be just to, very gently and delicately, there we go. Our dough, again, it's a little sticky, but does not really matter. Roll this up. So we're going to roll this up, fold this, fold our edges over, and well, as is, make sure that we have a proper seal. There we go. Now for me, I'm just having a look-see. Well, this is going actually into a loaf pan, so I can't really find it at the moment, but this one is going to into a loaf pan. Again, it's going to prove for another 45 minutes to probably just under an hour, after which time it will have again taken on a lovely bit of volume, and we can actually get to baking this boy. Well guys, we are, believe it or not, 45 minutes later, and as you can see, our bread has actually, there we go, risen up really nicely, puffed up very well. Now I'm just going to again gently, as you see, score this with a sharp knife. There we go, just to allow the crust to open nicely. We're going to brush this down with a little bit of water, not too much, gently again, but this is going to help us develop a lovely, nice, crispy crust. This boy is going into the oven for about half an hour at 200 degrees, and we should be done for lunch. Well, it's been half an hour, so our bread just came out of the oven, and of course, standard test you can always try. She sounds hollow, so she's good to go. And as you can see, neither on top nor on the sides can we actually see any of the filling sticking out. So you don't have any burnt bits of cheese or ham or anything. It's all tucked away nice inside. I'm gonna let this rest for about 30 to 45 minutes, and we should be ready to have some nice lunch. We're about 40 minutes after it's come out of the oven, so the bread, it feels a little bit lukewarm but not really hot anymore, so it'll be good for lunch. Let's just cut in and see what we've got. So as you can see now, this will stiffen up a little bit, but we have a lovely little mixture of indeed ham and cheese right in the middle of our bread. No need to cover this, maybe just smear a little butter on top. You're good to go. Try and enjoy, guys.